Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Epic Vision Zone. My name is Jane Applegath, founder of the Epic Vision Zone, Conversations that Inspire. Each show, we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dream so that you can live your epic life. Thank you for being here. And if you're listening to the audio version, be sure to follow the episode on your favorite app. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thomas Edison wrote, "If we did the things we were capable of, we would astound ourselves." Known for guiding ambitious corporate professionals to self-discovery so that they create sustainable growth, Donna Star is president of DStar Coaching and Consulting, a published author, certified executive coach, and a former senior VP of a global company. She is the author of the international bestseller Unsuccessfully Successful and has been a featured leading speaker of cutting-edge and Fortune 500 companies. Donna specializes in helping high-performing corporate executives and audiences become more self-aware, empowered in their decision-making, and create sustainable changes from the inside and out. Proven methods, innovative process, and humorous delivery make her a speaker favorite with audiences across all ages and stages of their journey. Her work teaches clients how to create meaningful changes, helping them to secure positive career choices, reduce work conflict, earn what they are worth, take confident entrepreneurial leaps, and step into their highest performing power. Welcome, Donna. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
I'm so happy to be here. I sound so great. Thank you for
You
making me feel
are.
that way.
You are. Oh my gosh, your background and your experience is absolutely fabulous and something I can't wait to delve into and share with our audience. So to start at the beginning, what inspired you to do the work that you do today?
Because it's the work that I needed to do when I was in my corporate career and didn't know I needed.
Wow.
And, I went through a lot of, and I know we'll get into that, but I had such a conflicted relationship with my corporate career because I had so much conflict in myself. And I know I'm not alone now that I've coached hundreds of people and gone through my coaching program. And that's why I want to do what I do today.
Yes, I read a very soulful story on your website about how your son came to you when he was very young. Maybe you could share that with our audience, because I know that there are many women out there that probably have struggled with the same thing.
Right. I mean, I think at the time I was still married, but not happily. And I was traveling quite a bit for work. My biggest account was in Louisville, Kentucky at the time. And I was living in Boston. I had a nanny, I think. I'm pretty sure. And I was sitting on the stairs. I remember it like it was yesterday. And my son said, "Oh, you don't spend enough time being my mom." And he was really young. And I was like, oh, like it was such a gut punch. I mean, like, kids, I mean, I'm sure I'm not alone. I don't know that many parents have a child that's quite so articulate at a young age, but he always has been. And that spoke right to my soul and really elevated my guilt to an epic level.
Yes, and I think it might have turned the key to start you exploring
It
and
took me a long
take,
time, but yes, I will
yeah.
say that I did leave my corporate job at the time and went to a local company, media buying company, where I wouldn't have to travel, and it was right around the corner from my house. But I was miserable there. I
Mm.
just wasn't a good fit for me. And I ended up going back several times to my old job in different capacities. So the work, when you asked me later on, when we talked earlier about success being an inside job, is I didn't fix what was going on inside me. So no matter where I went, the conflict was going to follow me.
Mm. That's such great insight, and I know we'll delve into that. And speaking of that, How do you define then executive coaching success? Because I think that kind of segues into the work that you do today.
So I have so many different answers to that question, but the first thing I will say is it's more important that my clients see success. And I do have a document that I work off of that I call an ROI document. You know, my corporate career is just baked into me, and I want them to feel a return on investment. It's hard to quantify sometimes in coaching or in life what success actually means to somebody. So there's an intake form, and then I tend to read that back midway to three-quarters of the way through, and the changes are the changes they want to make. So there's the executive coach success from the client perspective, and for mine, it's that I get to see the changes unfold within the person. I get to reflect and observe what I'm seeing with their permission, and the changes are astounding. If it's the right match, and coaching is a partnership like anything else, the changes are magical. And I was skeptical in the beginning, I have to say, when I went to my coaching program 4 years ago. And now well before now, I'm a full believer in the process.
Right, right. Just tell us a little bit of why you were skeptical, because that's interesting. Was that your
I was
corporate
skeptical.
background?
I think my corporate was like, if I can't see it and touch it, it doesn't exist.
Mm,
And if you can't explain it to me, then it's not real. Even though we're all guided with intuition, which we'll get into a little bit later, you all feel things when you're in your corporate career, or in your life. Forget being in corporate. We all feel things, and I didn't pay close enough attention to those things. So I think I was a show me girl before I became a coach.
yes, I could certainly relate to that, having been in the finance industry. It's definitely
Right.
results. What are the results? And like you said, it's really a much more individual kind of program where
Outcome.
you
Yeah.
exactly outcome. Right, right. Well, speaking of outcomes, I love this. You say that moms run on love. And I love that you've had that in there, because I would love to know how that helps you do the work that you do, because a mother's
Well,
love
at my
is
is
go ahead.
everything. So at my,
Yeah.
although my children may not always agree with me, what drives me more than anything is the love I have for my children. It's why I've done all the things. It's why I thought I had to stay in my corporate career much longer than I should have, even though as a coach, I don't love the word should have. Um, I want them to be proud of me. I want them to pick from me things that they should consider doing in their own life and not consider. And I've seen that because my kids are now going to be 27 and 30. So I've seen how I've rubbed off on them, both on the mostly on the positive side in terms of their work behavior. But everything I do is for them.
Right.
And so, I mean, that feels like my biggest job on the planet is to be their mom. It
Yes.
doesn't feel like it is my biggest job.
Yes, there's no question. There are so many moms out there that I'm sure can resonate with what you have just said. And I think too, being a mom helps individuals with their inner compassion and their empathy for individuals, especially in the coaching industry. I find that females are the ones that are being the ones that are delving into the new leadership role, and we'll get into that a little later on, because I do feel that there is a connection to a
Well, they do
mother's
say,
love.
they do say the McKinsey report that came out during COVID did say that women lead better in crisis, and certainly COVID was a crisis, right? Workplaces didn't know if they were coming or going. And hybrid, remote, illness, stay at home, work at home, live at home, no separation, and just an uncertain world that we were living in. And I think women have shown to, because of their empathetic skills, that they are stronger leaders during those times. In my regard, I think they're always stronger leaders. That doesn't mean there aren't great male leaders, but they have some core traits that are baked into them that a man may not have baked into them.
Exactly. And absolutely, the feminine energy is something that we bring to the table, and that's where our world is kind of going, the chaotic unpredictability. But well,
Right.
thank you for that insight, because I know I'm going to ask that a little later on. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times that success is an inside job, that you didn't fix
Right.
yourself first, and therefore, no matter what job you had, you would most likely be unhappy. Give us a little insight into that, because I know that that has a lot to do with the work that you do today.
It is. And so, like, if somebody comes to me and they say, "Can you help me with my resume and my interviewing?" And I'm like, "I'm not your person. Go find a resume coach. That is not my core competency. I definitely do interview prep with my clients if they're in between jobs." But many people present one way, and I think men are burdened by this even a little bit more than women. So I want to give equal play to what I see with my clients. Is you present confidently, but you may not feel that way on the inside. So when I can get my clients to match their inside and feel confident and present confidently, that's a win-win. And it shows up in every aspect of your life, with your children, with your partner, in an interview. But until you feel like, I've had clients say, I feel like Swiss cheese on the inside, but I just don't want anybody to know. It takes a lot of energy to hide that angst that you're, I use the word angst. It could be whatever word, disappointment, depression. I mean, people don't show depressed. They show that they're okay. That energy that it takes to present something that you're not feeling is enormous. So I try to marry those two environments so that when somebody answers, why can you do this job well? They really feel it. And it comes across like, I'm a pretty energetic, positive person. I think it comes across. Maybe not today. I don't know. You'll have to decide that. But I want people to be comfortable with who they are. And many people just are not comfortable in their own skin.
Right.
I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yes, it actually it's reminding individuals of the value that they bring, that they do have value, but they need to remind themselves of the gifts that they have, because often we're our own worst critics,
I would say
and
more than often.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there, you're absolutely right. And because of that, we take away from the gifts that we have. But like you said, it takes a lot of energy. So that, in essence, helps build the unshakable belief in the power of yourself. That's building the self confidence. Are there steps that you go through, or is it really on an individual basis? Are there certain steps that maybe you could share with our
Yeah, sure.
audience? Okay, terrific.
So if you're going to work with me and, I do my intake form, I will maybe purpose homework depend the client, and I plug and play my pieces based on where my clients are. So there are other coaching programs that might be more formulaic, but I sort of follow the energy of the person. You always do the intake form, and you always do a mini intake form so that you drive the session. In other words, it's not my goals, it's yours. But before we work together, and depending on how you present on our discovery call, I would like you to write down a list of your accomplishments prior to our first call. And a lot of people diminish the things that come easy to them. And conversely, they are epic master chess players at what they did wrong. They can list every grievance of every boss and every employee and every negative interaction and every mistake like that. And so I say to some people, and I just coached this woman in California, and I said, I did shut that off. And so I said to her, so she's like, I've had problems with my last couple of bosses. This follows me everywhere. I'm like, so you've been working for 25 years and you're focused on two bosses. Why don't we talk about some experiences that have been positive? And that goes into networking. That goes into, because people don't believe they have networks. Everybody has a network. So just to make sure I'm giving points, I will have somebody work on their accomplishments. It's good for performance reviews. It's good for interviews. It's good for building confidence. And I'll really work with my clients on building out that list, because for the two reasons that I mentioned to you. One is we could advertise our mistakes like better than NBC News. Like, we are the Dan Rathers of recording our own mistakes, but we are not the Katie Courics of like presenting our great features. And as a female, you're sort of taught that you can't do that. You can't tout your success. But I don't know if I'm making sense, or I'm sorry to ask this question. The apologies. A lot of my coaching is on, tell me if I'm going on too long, is how you talk to yourself. I'm a language police person. So I pay attention to the words that you use, and that's regardless of who I'm coaching. Shoulds, have to, need. Sometimes you do have to file your taxes. There are certain things in life you have to do. But those words that you speak to yourself, they keep you where you are. They keep you in judgment. They keep you thinking, I'm not good enough. And so much of coaching is about dismantling all those ecosystems that we are so comfortable living in.
Right. The limiting beliefs. So absolutely. Yeah, they are. And so you have them list their accomplishments. Do you have them then on the other hand list what their negative, like you said, they can go on and on about the things they did poorly or badly.
Yeah.
Do you have them list those
So
as well?
Yes. So what I would do, and what I did with my coach, and I do as needed. The accomplishments is a given. And on my midterm, in between sessions, you have to say something that you're proud of that you did every week. So it's a baked in part of how I coach. And I have to use my hands less. I see that now. But I have a side by side, which is, I believe I should be doing better in my business on the left side. Like, give me a negative statement that that thought loop that's in your head. And I learned this from my second coach. And then rewrite that script. So mine was, in the beginning, I should be doing better in my business. Then on the right side, write the truth of that statement. So my mind says I should be doing better on my business. The right side is, what's the reality of that? You have clients. I have renewable clients. I've built group programs. I have one-on-one coaching. Against what parameter am I using, or am I using that? So I will have you rewrite your negative self-talk on the left, and on the right, I will have you rewrite that statement. So that's what I call side by side. And then also beliefs. We are all laden with limiting beliefs. So my limiting belief might be, I use this in my group coaching program, but it might be, I'm dating my age here, but that blondes have more fun. Like, I grew up in the age when blondes had more fun, right? Or in my corporate world, I might have said that pedigree, like an Ivy League education, will trump my knowledge every day. And those are, so is that really true? Probably not all the time, right? So we'll work on your belief system. So my main belief that I overcame, and I think you do ask me this question later when we talked, is that I had to work harder than everybody else. I was a workaholic. So I had this incessant drive to just push myself to the point of, I'm going to call it burning in instead of burning out. Because really what you're burning is you're burning your insides. You're not. So I'm deciding to come up with a new phrase. And so I have you rewrite your belief system. So I don't believe that I have to work as hard or harder than everybody else to be successful. In fact, in my new business model, ease brings more success. But I didn't believe that until I became a coach. I really was like, that's where I was skeptical. I was like, how can that be true? But it is. Right. Because you let space in, you let some air in, you leave some thinking time in. That doesn't mean like I'm rolling around on the couch eating a bonbon. It just means like, hey, I didn't get that client. Not meant for me. And in my corporate life, I'd be like, what did I do wrong? Like, why didn't I get that client? I must be horrible. Like, I'm never going to coach anybody again. I would have gone through the spiral, and it's not necessary. The spiral is not necessary. It's self-induced.
Yes, it is. And also too, it's the environment. A lot of times it has to do with, the expectations. Expectations are very onus especially when you're in a corporate world, and depending on your job title and your job position. So yeah, I could
I
see the
mean, I
pressures of
agree with
that.
you.
Yeah,
I agree with you about
absolutely.
that. I'd say companies aren't responsible for your workaholic tendencies, but they benefit from it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And the
Oh,
only person that's
absolutely.
going to I do. I mean, my company benefited from the fact that I was answering emails at 3 in the morning. Oh, I win the prize. I get to set up the global Zoom call at 3 in the morning. Said no one ever. But that's how I felt at the moment. I was like, oh, I answered the email first. I get to set up the global Zoom call. Like, no, that's not whatever. But I don't do that. I wouldn't do that today because that's not a safe boundary or a sustainable boundary. And so
Yes.
if you say that you're going to log off at 6 o'clock and have dinner with your family, the world does not end. So companies
Yeah.
aren't going to, right?
Yeah, that's great. The world does not end. That, you see, you put that in perspective. The perspective is everything. I love that. I love that, Donna. You need to open with that. If you didn't answer that email at 6 in the morning or 4 or 5 or whatever it is, you know what? The world didn't end. Boy, big
well, in my
surprise.
group program, I have everybody end with that line like, oh, I went into my workout class today and you know what? The world didn't end.
Yeah,
And
big
it's true, right?
surprise.
Like we have this heightened self-importance that if we don't do the thing, that we're going to be fired for the thing and people are going to think less of us for not doing the thing. Actually, the reverse is a lot of times true. And if you look at why CEOs are successful, is because they are masters at saying no and staying focused on what is important
Focused.
to them and the business and the vision of the company. I know you asked me about that question. They didn't get to where they are because they said yes to everything. They said
Yeah.
they got to where they were because they drove impact by staying focused much of the time.
Right, absolutely. And learning to delegate. I understand. That was fabulous. I love that we came full circle with that because that really hits home. And that's something that everybody could take away. It's a great takeaway. So, what does it mean then to have character strength? And why does it matter in life? You say about building character strength.
Yep. So character strengths is actually a program that I use in my group coaching program, and it's from viacharacter.org, and it's based on positive psychology. And so much of what we do, I'm certified in several assessments, and honestly, I don't want anybody to be negative here. I have a problem with assessments. It could be an ego thing, so I'm going to just throw myself under the bus. I don't want to be put in a box. I really, really hate the box because I think we're living, breathing organisms, and certainly we have dominant traits. But the reason I like character strengths, and I would encourage anybody listening to take the free survey, and there are 24 character strengths, and your top ones are the ones that come naturally to you. So for me, humor, it is a natural strength of mine, and when I'm not using it, I'm not generally as productive or happy because I want to use my humor. And then the middle strengths might be something that are important to you, but you're just not as natural. So you're not bad or good. You're just not natural. So let's say leadership is a skill that you really want to develop and it's one of your lower strengths. Doesn't mean you don't have the ability to be a leader. It just means that you're not as comfortable. So once you know where your gaps might be, then you can build a plan around that. And I like it because it's not made to feel you less than. It's there to build you up, not bring you down.
I
So that's why I
love
think
that.
character strengths. And I've done them in group settings too, and it helps people get to know each other.
Hmm.
So it's positive personality traits, and if you know that somebody that love of learning comes up a lot because I'm teaching a course, so people that sign up for the course have a love of learning, and that's a popular one. Then if you have that employee, then you may want to offer some courses during the course of a year, some additional learning, because that's something that's important to them as a human. So people get to
Right.
know each other better. So it's one of the things that we do, and it's sort of a nice icebreaker for team building and for group coaching.
Yes, absolutely. So you say that's available? Is it on? Available
Yeah,
on
it's
your
on
your.
viacharacter.org, and it's a free survey. There's a paid one. You don't need to do the paid one, just do the free one. There's a lot of literature on it.
So,
And I think
could,
people are generally pretty excited.
yeah, no, I'd love that. So you said could you repeat that again? Via,
It's via character.org. I think I left it open, but
it's
via character.org.
okay, wonderful. Well,
And I
we'll
can,
include that with some of your information because that sounds, I totally agree with you. And it really helps you understand yourself better because we don't take the time to do this for ourselves, right? I mean, like you said, you're go, especially with your mom, you've got the house, you've got your children, you've got your, you're running you're on the hamster wheel, you've got your responsibilities, you've got your house, you've got your job. But when we take the time to understand ourselves, that begins the work on the
right.
inside. And one of the things is recognize your character strengths. And like you said, it's not to say that you're not good at the others. It's just that, well, that's not a huge strength of mine. So yeah, I'd love to build on it. I love that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I like it too. And I like to use the term when we're in the group, because there's like some aha moments for people, is not that you're not as strong. They're not as natural to you. So
I
that
love
doesn't
that.
mean that you can't build the muscle. Like, look, the bodybuilder didn't start out with all that muscle. It was important to them, and then they decided to build muscle. So it's available to all of us, as
Yes,
opposed to people
absolutely.
thinking that I've never been a leader and I'm not going to be a leader. And, in coaching, we say people are the leaders of their own life. Everybody's a leader. So I might have picked out the wrong skill there. But the love of learning is a big one. It comes up a lot, actually.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely me. I love learning, but absolutely, I really enjoy that information, Donna, and it's so important to give ourselves that permission to understand ourselves. So,
Yeah. And
I
right. What makes us tick?
exactly, and give ourselves the space to do that because it's a good thing and it actually benefits everyone. So explain then what the difference is between vision and goal setting because I know this is something that you also have in your program and there is a difference between the two.
Well, vision is imagination, letting yourself have the time to imagine the future you want, the goal, that where do you want to live? What do you want your life to be like? I want to be on a TEDx stage, so I'll put that out there. But so the vision is the imagination and the space to create, and the goal is the implementation, just to make it easy. So once I decide I want to be on a TEDx stage, because I definitely do, the goal might be I have to have a speech. I have to know who to reach out to. So, and those are goals of mine, to activate my vision. I hope that was an easy
Yeah,
understanding of the
absolutely. So the implementation are the goals. And so why do you feel then that some people have trouble articulating their vision and why is it important to have one?
It's funny because when I was in my corporate career, I didn't really have vision either because I let my career run me versus me running my career. So I can't say that I always had vision either. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think in our minds, what I think about as a female, their vision is to get married, to be in a white dress. Like to me, that's the vision. And then the goal is you find your partner. And that's like sort of baked into us, right? I don't know that men dream about their wedding day quite the way women do, but I think that's a good place to start. And I've been reading a lot about that lately. I think the Barbie movie has really sparked some good dialogue about gender and vision. I probably went off on a tangent there. But so I think goals are how I ran corporate. What were my revenue targets? How many new clients was I supposed to get? What were my turnover levels so that were acceptable? So those were all management by objective, all my goals. So I didn't really have a
Mhm.
vision other than I wanted to stay in my leadership role and I wanted to continue to grow in my career. That was about it for me, when I was working in corporate. I just was like tunnel vision, do my job, do it the best of my ability, keep on working at the pace that was literally maniacal pace. And I think you read that I just at the end couldn't even digest food. I just was having a hard time digesting. My body gave out on me. Um, so people may have a different answer for that, but I think vision feels too big for people. I think
Mm.
it feels overwhelming, a vision. like I'm not entitled to a vision. A lot of people that I coach are like, I'm just trying to get through. I'm just trying to get another job. I'm just trying to get my promotion. But vision feels lofty for people.
Mm, that's yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It does. But I feel that one of the reasons it feels so lofty is because we're not encouraged from the beginning to permit ourselves to imagine and to listen to our heart's desire, because to me vision is all about your heart's desire, your path in life, your why you're here, to make a difference, or to make an impact. And from the day we're put into a school, we're taught to conform, and that conformity just continues through our entire life, right? We conform
It
to the
does.
rules of coloring inside the lines. We conform to our office job in a cubicle. We conform to, I mean, everything. I mean, driving, yes, there has to be lines on the road. It might be a little dangerous, but if you see the way that our societies are shaped, and that's the way we become. So vision, you're right, it does feel lofty to most of us, but I believe it's because we have not experienced or given ourselves the opportunity to dream and to imagine.
I completely agree with you. My first vision board felt like I was paralyzed by my first
Mm,
vision board because I was like,
interesting.
what do you mean? Like, I want a nice house. I want 2 cars, 2 kids. That's not a vision. That's like, that's just systematic goals that are baked into how I was raised and the society that I was raised in. Maybe
Right,
that I call that my vision, but that's not heart centered all the time. That feels like an accomplishment that I'm supposed to notch off.
right, right.
So I agree with
Yeah,
you that we're not taught to dream. Like dreams are, dreaming is, who has time for that? There was no time for dreaming when I grew up,
right,
you
right.
know?
Yeah, I definitely, but that is, yeah. Thank you for giving us the insight into the goal and the vision. But I do believe the vision is what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's what gets us excited.
I,
It's the fire. It's the fire that
oh, I agree
those
with
who
you.
have. Yeah, it's the purpose. It's the passion. It's all of the above. So, how has the role of high performance leadership changed over the years? And if so, do you feel it's leaning? I think we touched on this a little bit earlier on. Do you feel it's leaning more towards the feminine leadership? Because we're in times of unpredictability, we're in times of chaos and change and constant uncertainty. Do you feel that there's a change in leadership with the way the world is changing today?
I don't think there's more emphasis on female leadership. I wish that was the case. I think a lot of women left during COVID. I think actually all the gains that we may have made, we've taken sort of a backskid here. And that's my honest opinion. So no one has to agree with me on that. And I think we have a lot of room to go. But high performance leadership to me hasn't necessarily changed. It's that we have to change our leadership with the times that we're living in. We have to be nimble and care about our employees, regardless of the stages of their life that they're in, whether they're new moms, whether they're caring for aging parents, whether we're dealing with COVID, whether we're dealing with a sick child and we have childcare issues. We have to meet our employee base where they are. And I think that we might be more employee centric now, but I think high performance leadership is a cornerstone of good leadership. So I'm not sure I think it's changed. I just think good leaders should be nimble and agile.
Mm,
And regardless of
absolutely.
the stage they're in, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Because to be agile and nimble means that you're sensitive to the changing times, and like you said, to
So if
be.
you're Yeah, so if you're working at Wang, I don't know, I come from Boston, so Digital and Wang were big mainframe companies. Or Alta Vista, if anybody remembers, I'm old, but like the search engines, Google was not the top search engine. Alta Vista came out first, or it was certainly one of the leading ones. No one even knows who Alta Vista is now because some people think, or AOL, some companies like that, they didn't stay around because they weren't nimble. They believed in their own. I mean, obviously, there are other reasons why companies fail and leaders fail, but one of them is that they have tunnel vision and they don't have like a holistic view of the environment. It's the same with an employee base. So for me, be nimble or become obsolete. Finally,
Yes,
I do believe that there are a lot of leaders and managers that don't serve their employee populations as well as they could.
yes.
That seems pretty
They're
delicate, but I
yeah.
really believe that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we're seeing that in the statistics of people leaving their employment. I mean, it's definitely an issue because they had an experience with the space. So we want to put it during COVID. It gave them time to breathe. It gave them time to realize what their family life was about. It gave them time to reflect. It gave them time to understand that there's more to life than just the job. And so going back is now, something that leadership has to deal with, because it's like, well, I want more. It's not that I don't want to work. It's just that I would like more from what I'm doing. Is it leading
Or I want
somewhere?
more of
Am
my
I
life.
learning? Right.
Agreed. I mean, the greatest debate that I think we're seeing right now is this return to work, hybrid, remote. So now companies are mandating 4 days back in the office. Some are doing 3, some are hybrid. It's so confusing to be an employer and employee right now. And I believe that some flexibility also always benefits both parties. Like, from a true coaching perspective, where's the win-win? Why does there have to be a mandate? Like, why do we think that we don't have banker's hours anymore? That was like an antiquated system. That 9 to 5 system is antiquated. That is not the way the world works anymore.
Right. Yes, absolutely. That was fabulous. Why do we have to have mandates? There's the conformity, and we've got to get out of the box,
I mean, if you
definitely
trust
break.
your employees, like during COVID, did work get done? No one was in the office during COVID. Did your company close? I mean, forget the restaurants where people couldn't
Yeah,
come in. So I'm just talking about corporate places
corporate.
managed to get work done. Now, was there as much collaboration? Do I believe in water cooler conversations and being able to walk by somebody's hallway? 100%. But I don't think it has to be all or nothing either.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the world proved that over COVID for sure. Moving on to imposter syndrome. It's a really hot topic these days. And what coaching advice can you share with our audience to help overcome the imposter syndrome?
I have a lot to say about imposter syndrome. I have a module on it that I teach. I hate the term. Just going to put that out there.
I
On
agree.
the surface. Okay. Oh, I love you so much. On its surface, I would say good for you for feeling imposter syndrome. There's nobody that feels imposter syndrome that isn't out of their comfort zone. By the way, I will give a caveat of diversity, equity, inclusion. If you truly believe that you don't belong in the room, then that's a different version of imposter syndrome, which I don't think is adequately named. But if you are truly freaking out in your system because you don't think you're good enough, because the whole idea of imposter syndrome is being a fraud, even though evidence would support the opposite, that is the true definition. Good for you. We don't get ahead in life if we don't get out of our comfort zones. In first grade, we can't imagine graduating, but you have a process that you go through to get you to that spot. In Canada, it's different. I know you have more grades than that, so I should have used that. But so on the first level, I would say imposter syndrome is a good sign. And the statistics show that up to 80%, depends on the stats, they're all over the place. I would say most corporate people at one point or another have felt imposter syndrome. I mean, I have quotes from Michelle Obama feeling that way. I mean, the biggest people in the world feel that way. So kudos to you. And then there are 5 different, you probably already know this, but there are 5 different archetypes for imposter syndrome. Perfectionism, all the things that we associate. The best way to get out of imposter syndrome without going through the archetypes is to take action. That's it. Because what happens if you're a perfectionist, it delays you from taking action because everything has to be perfect. So done is better than perfect might be a perfect saying for somebody who's a perfectionist and won't hand in their work because they like have to reread it 20 times, won't delegate because they're the only ones that can do it, won't take time off because they're too nervous that someone will figure out that they actually don't know what they're doing. There are a lot of evidence to support these archetypes, and delegating, which you mentioned earlier, is definitely one of them. It's like, oh, it's gonna, I just have to do it myself. No one else can do it the way. Well, you learned because somebody delegated to you. So if that was how someone presented to me, I would say, try smaller tasks. Try delegating something simple. And if it's perfectionism, I may say, just try to try to look at it twice instead of 17 times. So there are little tips, but all of them require some level of action. And the other thing about imposter syndrome is it's one thing to talk about it, but talking about it won't get you out of imposter syndrome. Talking about losing weight doesn't make you lose weight. So yes, talk about it, but then take action.
Yeah, that would be nice. So if we could talk about losing weight.
Same thing. Do I have to work out all the time? No, it would be nice, but it's not how it happens, unfortunately, right?
Right. So take action. Yeah. Like you said, that's a really interesting perspective. I'd never heard that, where if you feel or you believe that you have it, well, kudos to you because you're really stepping out of your comfort zone. So it's a good thing. It's not a negative thing. So that changes the energy right away. And then, so what are you going to do about it? I mean, that's basically when you say take action, it's like, okay, you realize you feel this way. So how are you going to shift that energy? Right.
I mean, a lot of people will come to me if we are doing interview prep and they think if I get asked an interview question and I don't know the answer, that they're going to be immediately disqualified. And the reality is no one knows everything. Nobody, not even the smartest people in the world. So to say, that's a really interesting question. I think it may be this, but I'd love to follow up on that. Is a perfectly acceptable, depending on who you're interviewing with, is a perfectly acceptable response. So teaching people how to be comfortable with the fact that no one knows everything is a lot of what I do, because people really hold themselves to a standard that's unattainable.
Exactly. And that's where the imposter syndrome comes in. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right.
That's really.
So there are lots of different ways. So there's not one way to skin the imposter syndrome cat. There's multiple, depending on how you present. I will treat you each a little bit differently. But it's taking little bites.
Yes, absolutely. Small steps wins the race for sure.
Small steps.
Well, you have an innovative coaching process, you say, and you have what's called the sniff test secret.
Yeah.
Tell us what that's all about.
I just talked about it with a client yesterday. So first of all, my innovative coaching practice also includes intuition. I trained during COVID with a forensic medium, and which she was like doing murder cases, like missing body type stuff. She used to be a police officer, and during COVID, she was like, "I'm going to teach intuition classes," and I was like, "Who doesn't want to tap into their intuition? We all have it." Little did I know she was like a forensic medium that was going to train us to. So I feel energy. I'm not, I don't want to sound woo-woo, but I feel energy, and that's how I run my sessions. So that's one way that I use my coaching, and I think one way why it's harder to pin me down, because people can say the same things and have very different feelings, behaviors, thoughts behind that same statement. And I think it's our job as a coach to kind of excavate what's really going on. So I want to give that as more innovative. And then the sniff test is part of coaching. Anybody who's gone through a coaching program will understand this. Is we tell ourselves stories. So you use the word limiting beliefs, but there's actually interpretations, which is the thing we coach around the most, are the stories we tell ourselves. So you're walking past your boss when we were in office, your boss or somebody that you work with doesn't say hello to you. And by the time you get to your office, you are out of a job. You have talked yourself into you're going to get fired. I mean, or you walk into a room, people start talking and you think, I have no friends, or everybody hates me, because you go into, Does this resonate with you? Am I going off the deep end here, or
Yeah,
does that make
no,
sense?
this is, yeah, stories we tell ourselves. Yes,
The
absolutely.
stories we tell ourselves are very rarely positive. Like, oh my God, they're like all talking about how much they like me and what a great, no, that never, the stories are generally never on the positive side. They're usually on the negative side. And if they are on the positive, you are in the minority for the most part, right? So the sniff test is when somebody rails and they're like, oh, this happened to me today, and I know it means X. My coach used to say to me, you actually don't know. You actually don't know. And I'm like, well, that's true, because I haven't had the conversation. So I actually don't know. So little T truth is the story you're telling yourself and believe is truth. Capital T truth, which is the sniff test, is what would you say to your best friend? What would you say to a colleague? What would you say to your children, your partner? Is very rarely the same thing that you're telling yourself. And that's the sniff test. If it doesn't pass that, you're probably telling yourself a story.
I love it. Yes, it's changing the story. Is this what my
Right.
best friend would say to me? No, they
And
wouldn't
I
say
will
that.
ask them. And I'll ask my clients that if your kid came home and said, no one likes me at school today, everybody hates me, which, it happens all the time in school. Well, not all the time, hopefully, but it does happen. You would say, oh, honey, that's not the truth. You just had Johnny Smith over, you would never say that and believe that. Very rarely.
Right.
I mean, there may be some extenuating circumstances, so I don't want to appear insensitive, but you're never talking to somebody else with the same issue as you're talking to yourself. Very rarely. So that's just the sniff test. And it gives you, once you start to get people to think bigger and they change their perspective, it gives them different ability to make different choices, right? I mean, if they're at, oh, I'm going to get fired, then they show up like very defeated with their tail. But if they're like, oh, that person was just having a bad day, why don't I follow up and say, hey, I saw you in the hall today and we didn't get a chance to catch up. How's everything? You wouldn't do that if you were feeling like that person hated you, but you start to look at different perspectives. And I
Right.
think when we are able to look at different perspectives and different scenarios, we make different choices. And coaching is all about helping people see different perspectives and that they have more choices than they originally started out with. It's not like,
Absolutely.
right? So that's my sniff test.
That is absolutely perfect. I love it. And when you do that, you're also shifting the energy, because your energy
For sure.
goes from defeat, depression, anger, sadness to, wow, you start to speak to somebody or you look at it and it lifts you up. And all of a sudden you're happy, or you're joyful, or maybe you help them. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And
Totally
that you can feel
different.
the energy shift in a coaching session when you get that. Oh, I'm so glad we talked about this. Like, it just, when you asked me about the success of executive coaching, is being able to walk through seeing a client change from, to, all right, there's more here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a shift. And it's like everything. We all need to be reminded of it, and understand that we do tell ourselves the stories and make those stories good ones. So it's a constant, and it's learning. It's just like you said, learning is why we're here, learning and growing and making an impact. So that was wonderful. I love that sniff test. I'm going to have to use that.
You
Thank
take
you
it
so
all.
much.
You take it all.
That's
Yeah.
great. So, Donna, if there was one critical message that you could share with the world, what would it be?
It doesn't have to be so hard. What if it didn't
That's
have to
it.
be so hard?
Yeah,
It doesn't.
I love that. It doesn't have to be so hard. See, that changes the perspective again. Right. Why are you making it so hard? It doesn't need to be.
And what would
That's
it feel like
perfect.
if it wasn't? What would it feel like if it wasn't? And you have the ability to make that decision every single day.
And to make that happen.
You do.
Right.
You are. Yeah.
Life is
So
all about,
that is always
yeah.
my message is, my personal brand is say it like it is, which I think probably is somewhat evident on this discussion we're having, which has been really fun. But when I sign off on my emails or whatever, it doesn't have to be so hard. I promise you that, because I do. I mean,
Mhm.
we make it harder a lot of times, and there are always extenuating circumstances, right? There always are. So I want to acknowledge the outliers, but for the most part, we make it harder on ourselves than it has to be.
Absolutely. It's like we will go back to the beginning. We are our worst critics. You know,
Right.
why there's all kinds of psychological reasons why, but we have to learn that it's there and then be aware of it and then change the recording, change the story, change the atmosphere, change the friends, change. It's all about a choice. You can choose to live
It
your,
is all about choice. Right.
it's all about choice. You can live your default vision or you can live your desired vision. Which one
Oh, I
do
love
you
that.
choose?
Can we swap the sniff test with what you just said?
Absolutely.
Because I
It's
really
a
like that.
choice. It's your choice, right? Because really, we are all living a vision. We're all living our story. Which one
We
do
are
you
all living our
choose?
story, and
The
we get to
default
choose.
or the desired, right? And yeah, so a choice is very important. But yes, so let can you tell the audience all about where your coaching program is available? We'll have all of this information on the Epic Vision Zone bio pages as well. I know you have a great newsletter and you also have a discovery call. So just give our audience a little insight into where they can find you and some of the programs and or
Do I
things that you
have
have
to? I'm
available.
just kidding. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. So, I mean, I think the easy way to find me is on dstarconsultants.com, and it has information about my book and my programs. I'm always changing those, and you can sign up for my biweekly newsletter. I do biweekly because I think corporate people are drowning. So when I first came out of my coaching program and I hired my first coach, he said, write to your corporate people every, 3 times a week. And I'm like, no way. He said, yeah, I might have been slightly aggressive on that, but I try to be respectful. And so I do an email about every other week. Um, my book is on Amazon, Unsuccessfully Successful. My discovery call is on my website. So those are complimentary to see if there's a fit. I am happy to also recommend other coaches. I have a pretty extensive coaching network. So it's not about always working with me, it's about finding the right fit. And I'm very active on LinkedIn under Donna Star. I'm semi-active on Instagram. I'm active on Instagram, but I write every day on LinkedIn, just about. So those are great places to find me. DStar's Consultants, um, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Wonderful. Well, definitely check those out. And like I said, again, they'll be available on the Epic Vision Zone bio pages. And because we're here, Donna, on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question. And that is, if your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
Well, because I just wrote a book, obviously, I think that's near and dear to my heart, Unsuccessfully Successful. But because I get to choice, I have a choice. I want it to be Successfully Successful.
Mm, I love it. And I love that
And
title
that's,
too, by the way.
you know what,
Unsuccessfully.
my title of my book was going to be Silly, Say It Like It Is, which is my brand. And also just a play on words with how much levity do we have in our corporate lives? Not as much as we would like. At least I did not. And then I wrote a bio about myself. You have to write it in the program. And I wrote, Donna Star was unsuccessfully successful. And I'm like, huh. And my editor is like, I really like that. And I said, you know what? I'm going to change the book to that. So it was a
Yeah.
last minute change, but I really like it. It really encapsulates how I felt in my corporate career, how I felt about myself.
Yeah. Wow. And also for me, it sparks my curiosity
Yeah.
because I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting title. I want to learn about that. How do you become
Well, thank you.
unsuccessfully successful? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, once again, Donna, thank you so much for joining us here today. And like I said, do connect with Donna through all those social media. Like she said, LinkedIn is her go to. And I'm definitely going to connect with Donna and subscribe to her newsletter and go to the Epic Vision Zone bio pages. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. That's my go to. And don't forget to connect with me at janeapplegath.com, where you can find the keys to your dream success. It's a free download. Sending you much love and success. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.